Hello, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Mario Gooden, and I am president of the Architectural League. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to our online version of the Current Work series. This event today features Rachaporn Choochuey, design director of Allzone, based in Bangkok, Thailand. Current Work is a lecture series featuring leading figures in the world of architecture, urbanism, design, and art. This season's Current Work series examines projects and firms enacting modes of architectural practice, or I should say new modes of architectural practice, collaboration, and community engagement. Upcoming conversations in this series include 51N4E from Brussels, who will be live in April at the Great Hall at Cooper Union on April 11th, and Author Lena Initiative out of Cairo that will be online on May 2nd. I would also like to announce our final two lectures in the Emerging Voices series coming up this Thursday and next Thursday. On this Thursday, we will have Jeanette Kim, principal of All of the Above, and Na-Yun Wang and David Moon of NHDM Architects. Next Thursday on March 30th, we'll have Oficina de Resiliencia Urbana from Mexico City and Terremoto with offices in Los Angeles and San Francisco. All of these events are free with Zoom sign up through the League's website, archleague.org. Today's program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the New York City Council and by the New York State Council of the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. Current Works is also co-sponsored by the Irwin S. Channon School of Architecture of the Cooper Union, and we wish to thank Cooper for its partnership. The Architectural League additionally thanks its members whose support helps make possible this and other programs. So now, let me introduce today's moderator, Sunil Bald. Sunil is partner of the New York-based practice studioSUMO, which has been featured as one of Architectural Record's Design Vanguard and the Architectural League's Emerging Voices. In 2015, SUMO was awarded the annual prize in architecture from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Sunil's firm has also received the Young Architects Award from the Architectural League, as well as fellowships from the New York Foundation for the Arts and the New York State Council of the Arts. Sunil is the Associate Dean and the William Henry Bishop Visiting Professor, Professor at Yale School of Architecture, where he teaches design studios and visualization. Previously, he taught design at Cornell University, Columbia University, University of Michigan, and Parsons. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Sunil, who will then, or to turn it over to Sunil, who will introduce our guest speaker.
Great. Thank you, Mario. And thank you to the League for inviting me to introduce today's speaker, Rachaporn Choochuey. So though born in Bangkok, Rachaporn had a truly international education, receiving her Bachelor's of Architecture from Chulalongkorn University. I practiced that all morning. Bangkok, and a Master's of Science in Advanced Architectural Design from Columbia University, and a PhD in Architectural History from the University of Tokyo. She returned to Bangkok as a member of the Faculty of Architecture at Chulalongkorn and was there from 2002 up till 2022. In 2009, Rachaporn founded Allzone in Bangkok, where she is a design director. And last fall, I was lucky enough to get to know Rachaporn when she was the Louis Kahn visiting professor at the Yale School of Architecture. Our studios were adjacent to each other on the 4th floor at Rudolph Hall, and her infectious enthusiasm and positivity rubbed off on my students, and I'm convinced they produced much better work because of the proximity. So in 2016, Allzone completed the MAIIAM Contemporary Art Museum in Chiang Mai, the first contemporary art museum in Thailand, which has subsequently been awarded the Best New Museum Award of Asia Pacific in 2017. And this past fall, Allzone completed the prestigious MPavilion. Rachaporn will share the design and making of both of these projects today. Allzone's international presence continues to grow, having recently participated in exhibitions at the Guggenheim Museum, the Chicago Architectural Biennale, the Vitra Design Museum, the Triennial of Milan, the Ichigo Tsumori Triennale, and the Sharjah Architecture Triennale. Despite all her kind of international presence, the sensibility of Rachaporn's work remains deeply rooted in Bangkok. The rapid urbanization of Asian megacities has both adhered to grand-scale master planning and has materialized in a generic and sanitized vision of the contemporary global city, one where it can be challenging to distinguish between a Shanghai or a Kuala Lumpur or even a Bangkok. But unlike so many architects who have aided this transformation, Allzone's work draws energy from and gives energy to the vibrancy at street level, embracing the improvisational, the material, the tactile, and the flavorful. Hers is both a practice of resistance and a practice of joy. And I right now feel very joyful to hand over the Zoom screen to my good friend Rachaporn, who will present today's talk lightly, casually. Rachaporn?
Thank you very much, Sunil. It's really a pleasure to have a chance to speak at Architecture Week New York and to be introduced again by Sunil. Last fall, I gave a talk at Yale, and Sunil was also helping to organize everything. So Sunil, please bear with me because today's talk will be somehow overlapping with the one you already heard last fall. Let me share first my screen. Okay, so this is Bangkok, and this is exactly our office. Just to show you how we work here, we are around 10 people all the time. The studio has a model room as everyone else. This is the table where I am now. The reason we always try to keep, I always try to keep around 10 people is because I think 10, 12 people, we can go to a restaurant together and sitting in the same table. And especially if you go to a Chinese restaurant with a round table, you can fit around this number. So that is quite an essential factor how we share the office. And actually, I have to say that we didn't really want to become architect. I study architecture as Sunil revealed, and but after I finished my undergrad, I worked in a big office for a few years, and I didn't really like it. So I thought that working as an architect is not really my cup of tea. So I thought that maybe I should do something else, but I really like architecture. So I kept studying architecture until my master and PhD, thinking that I could teach and doing everything else about architecture, but not being an architect. But at the end, while I was in Tokyo doing my PhD, I had the chance to work with a few friends on exhibition and installation. And I thought it was great. It was interesting. It was much more fun than working on a building. So when I came back to Bangkok 20 years ago, I started to teach in a university. And also I was working on a small exhibition installation, also helping artists to work on the installation. So that was interesting. And I thought, wow, this is what I wanted to do. But then finally, I had to work on architecture. The first project I did was for myself. When I work on those exhibition design and installation, it started to get serious. We need people to help us. I mean, I was working with my friends, and so we had to find a place to do an office, and also I had to find a place to live properly in Bangkok. So I found this kind of running down shop house in the middle of Bangkok, and I had to transform it. As you can imagine, well, I studied architecture for 11 years. When I had to do my own building, I need to do it myself. It would be funny to ask people to do it. So with the support of my family, we bought the building and I transformed it into the buildings that you could see in the same screen. So that was the first time I worked as an architect, and I thought, wow, it's not that bad. It's not exactly as I did when I was working in a big office. And the project got quite very good feedback from a lot of people. They wanted to do the same, and we got published in many places. So yeah, we start doing architecture by then. And but then during the work of this project, what kind of bothered me the most was the moment when we had to tear down all the walls and parts of the building that we didn't like and wanted to transform. I saw this huge, the mountains of garbage coming in and out from the site, and I don't know where they went. It was kind of bothering. So I started to think, why do we have to build this much? How can we build a bit less and lighter so that we could have a chance to modify a building upon our needs. So the idea of building lighter and so that it is easier to be transformed in the future, always the main concern in my mind when I build anything. And actually, we ended up building kind of all kinds of architecture, houses, housing, transformation, warehouses, museum, as Sunil mentioned, and even housing. But deeply, I still have this kind of obsession to trying to understand how we build really like lighter. And as I started my design career from exhibition and installations, that's it's not really a very conventional way of building. I try to keep these parts of practice, like in this unconventional building, always in our office. Every year we would have one project that it is not really a normal building. It's more like an installation, so short-term architecture. As you could see in these pictures, that we build lots of canopy shades for temporary occasions, events, or exhibitions. The main thing is to build a shade in such environment, in tropical environment. And also we had a chance to work in a place like Sharjah, which pretty much also require a lot of shades. Today, I'm going to share with you the current work, as the title, that we developed so far on building this kind of canopy light environments. It is the MPavilion in Melbourne of starting last year. We call it MPavilion 2022. What is the MPavilion? It is people always compare MPavilion with the Seven Thai Gallery Pavilion in London. Yes, it has very similar nature. that it built in a Queen Victoria Garden for 4 months, and then it would be relocated somewhere in Melbourne for another 20 years. The main difference between the MPavilion and the Serpentine Gallery Pavilion is that the MPavilion is really a cultural platform. They host more than 300 events during 4 months of the season of each season. And when we received the commission, we were extremely nervous because the architects who were invited to work on the project before us, they are all like big name: OMA, Amanda Levitt, Studio Mumbai, Glenn Murcutt, and the one who will be following us next year will be, actually this year, not next year, Tada Oando. It was just announced a few days ago. So we were very nervous because we were like totally unknown. So, but then we had to do. This is the locations in Queen Victoria Garden, and this is how it looks. That in the Queen Victoria Garden, this is just a few weeks ago. It was like this, but it's a long story. At the beginning, this is the proposal we did to the MPavilion team in October 2021. By then, we just got out from a very long lockdown, and in Thailand as well. This condition was very dreadful. We were confined in a room for a long time. And when we started to work on this project, we thought that it is a chance that we want to be out of the room. The pavilion should be a place to celebrate the life of being outdoor. It should be friendly, it should be welcome, it should be fun. It should be a place where people seeing each other in public. It is something that we missed the most during COVID, that seeing other people really unknown in the public. We had this idea that the pavilion should be like a lot of trees together and create a space where people can be under with some light going through. This is all the reference and ideas we had, and some sketches that we gave to the team. We thought that the pavilion should be should be a roof, a canopy that is really loose, without much tensions, so that it gives people the relaxed atmosphere, being under the tree, of course. But at the same time, the requirements of the MPavilion is that it has to be rainproof for at least 150 square meter, and also Melbourne is a place where the sun is very strong, so the pavilion is supposed to protect people from the sun. Maybe you already knew that Australia has a very strong UV and very high rate of people with skin cancer. So the sun is serious stuff. So being under the sun is not really something that people should do it for a long time. So the pavilion should give people comfort also from the sun. So, and then this is we think that in terms of planning, apart from the roof, it should be very loose, few platforms that could be used as a stage or the seating and or whatever they want to do. And then we were asked, we were talking a lot with the curator and also program directors about what's going to happen. As I mentioned that they host almost more than 300 events in one season. So all kinds of events you could think of, concert, talk, workshop, dance, and all kinds of things, party and dinner, and so they asked us what if we have any inputs for the program. We said that as a Thai, we are very serious about food, so we would love that the pavilion is able to serve food and drinks all the time. And that's why we have to make like very serious kiosks that could meet a lot of requirements in terms of sanitation for food and drinks. And this is the our also early sketches on like how we deal with the roof. We want the roof to be kind of loose. And then when our engineer heard that, they were like, no way. They went pale. We work with two groups of engineers. One is from AECOM, the other one is from Tensit. Nigel Burden from AECOM, after talking, discussing a lot about this loose tension, he said that you can't do it too loose because inside all of us, we have a tiny structural engineer. When a building would be moving too much, we will run away. So that is the limit. So he spent a lot of time trying to make me understand how we shape the project with these ideas of something loose and something rigid. So he actually proposes us like 7 schematic design of structural components to meet all the requirements of rainproof and also the movement that we want. And finally, this is the conceptual sketch of the project. We ended up having 3 layers of roof doing 3 different things. The upmost layer is to give the profile so that people could see it from far away. And then the middle layer is the rainproof. And the 3rd layer, the lowest layer, the ceiling, is the one that shapes the space and allow being loose to have movement. And this is the close-up of the section. You can see like the 3 layers working together. And with the 3 layers, actually, we need 3 types of material, which is the one that shape the project very much. The first layer of the material we wanted to talk about is this middle layer. Is the fabric, the new fabric called STFE that it's used to protect the rain. It attached with this main steel structure that's actually full of tensions. And then this is the STFE material is actually the mesh and laminated with some kind of polymer. It is very new material. I think we are the 3rd building in the world that using this material. That the material is invented to serve the purpose of mainly a very light roof. For example, at the end of the stadium, that you need to have a lot of light going through because the grass under could grow. But if you use glass, it would be heavy. This one is 1/3 of the weight of the glass, but it has 50% of transparency. So it's pretty good with light. So we use that as the skeleton layer, the middle one. And then the top layer, we try a lot of materials. And finally, we like the effect of this transparency of the fishing nets. So we we search really a lot. Actually, I have to say that the fabric in architecture is very limited. At the beginning, we want to use everything like recycle, only produced in Australia and all that. So it was not really easy. It almost didn't exist. So there is still a big room in fabric for architecture. Anyway, going back to this fishing net, we finally found a factory in Bangkok that they made this fishing net. So we call and trying to ask them the color, the size, the thickness, and all that. And then we had a feeling that we didn't really speak this with them in the same language. So they got really kind of frustrated and annoyed with us. And finally, they asked us like, what kind of fish do you want to catch? So we tried to explain them that actually there's no fish to catch, but we wanted to use this for the pavilion and so on. And we learned a lot from them that different fish would need really different types of nets because they see the color differently. And also it depends on where you catch the fish. If it is in different sea, it's require different colors. So like all kinds of knowledge about fishing was given to us. But anyway, we wouldn't catch anything. And so far, this net didn't really catch any animal. So this is the net that we asked them to do. Another issue that I really kind of mind blown working with them is that I asked them, okay, how many square meter of those, and they were like, what do you mean by square meter? With the mesh, with the nets, you cannot measure by square meter because it is dimensionally unstable. I was like, wow. They measure everything by the number of the knots and the distance between the knots. The size that we are very used to in architecture, like measuring by centimeter or inch, is really like out of the questions. And this is finally, this is the mesh, the net that we asked them to do. It's 2 colors, yellow and orange. And why is this? Because it's, again, it's, as I said, materials, the fabric material in architecture is very limited. Finally, we have to use this material that it is a bly that usually we use inside the building or even in the exterior as our last layer, the ceiling. We didn't really have much many choices to choose. They are the only availability in terms of colors. We want the warm color, not cold color. So these are the only available. And not only the colors that are available, the stock that they have was also very limited. So we had to work within the stock, and the color, this color had to match with the fishing net. So that's how it works. And with this ceiling, we used the waffle pattern, the waffle structure as a ceiling, because we did this before in our previous project. And we like it very much because it's allow the light to go through, but with the depth, it also bounces the light. It's quite nicely. And also it's give you a kind of loose and also soft curve, but not too much. So it's our research that we did for some time, and so we are pretty confident to do that. But then this one is the most complex that we've done so far. It is like 48 pieces, so totally different patterns of the waffle structure. And again, we have to use the material in a very limited way because we didn't have much stock. So that's how we have to manage. And this is like, we have to document everything because the fabricator in Melbourne will have to do this. So this is like the details measurement of everything. And it's all the details that we explain the installer. And one thing I would like to share with you is that working with fabric and digital model is not very simple. Usually digital models, this is Rhino. Actually, it's pretty good with something that is tougher with fabric, that it has this kind of soft movement, softness. It's really difficult to understand through digital model. Perhaps we are not very good at that yet, but we ended up making a lot of physical models also with fabric to understand how everything would be curved. This is like 1 to 50 models, and then we enlarge it into 1 to 10 so that we understand exactly how the waffle would behave. We did like the whole model for, I think this is for like almost 2 months to understand each piece of waffle. This is, and also we had to do 1-to-1 scale model with the actual materials, because the material we did was not really, was just paper, but this one is the real materials that we would use. But since we didn't have much of the material, we can do a mock-up only very small portion. And this is how it looks when we try, and also all the details. It has to be like 1-to-1 mock-up, because fabric, it's not easy to imagine how it would behave. And these are all the tests we had in the office. And finally, we hand everything to the fabricator in Melbourne. This is when they cut everything. And as you could see, that this is the way they cut the fishing net. So they had to expand it up until a certain size before they cut it. And this is the construction side. They put the steel columns, and they put the steel column, and then the middle layer, which is the STFE, and then the fishing nets, which is the top layer, to diffuse the lights and to keep the profile, and then the lower layer, which is the waffle layer. It's you could see that the structure is very difficult and very complicated. AICOM is the best engineer, and we have been working so far, like the best engineer we've been working so far. And also Tensis, that they are extremely world-class engineer. Like small office like us never worked with just a good engineer before. And so this is a few weeks ago when I was there. I was not there at the opening because the construction was delayed. So I couldn't go at the opening on the 8th of December, because it was exactly the same day as my final review at Yale. So I had to skip, but I went back late February. So that's how it is. And another very important aspect is the lighting at night, because they have also a lot of event at night. We asked the lighting designer if we can make the night moment as a kind of X-ray moment, so that we can see all the very complicated engineering details that usually people don't see during the day. So you could see at night. And also with the kiosk, we couldn't really make a decision which color we should paint it. So our creative director of the MPavilion proposed that why don't we just change the color every month so that it became an event as well, so people could see the pavilion with a new color. So yes, finally we used 4 colors for every month. Now it's in the last month, so it's this salmon color. So it's like changing a lipstick for the pavilion. And this is a few weeks ago when I also gave a talk at the pavilion, and they have all kinds of events. I was quite happy that finally the pavilion serves really all kinds of activity that they plan. You could see from their Instagram that they really have all kinds of things like the yoga in the morning and so on. And now we are in the discussion, so where to relocate the pavilions. You could see that this is a kind of this is the project that we start from very light, very like non-architectural elements, and throughout these years we develop it into like more architectural, more serious architecture elements. This pavilion, it's by far the most serious pavilion, or let's say the most serious canopy we did in terms of function. So because it could also retain the rain, it has all kinds of engineering infrastructure to house a lot of events. So that's came from the light of the very experiments project we did. I would like to share with you another small experiment project that we did. This is more like how we built in a non-conventional way within non-conventional materials. It is a project that we did for Chicago Architecture Biennial in 2015. The brief was very open. Joseph Prima said, do whatever you like to reflect where you are. And we thought that we want to do something to reflect the conditions of architecture in Thailand, in Bangkok. So this is a project for young professional in a tropical metropolis. In this case, is Bangkok. It is a temporary housing. When people just finish school, they could they wouldn't earn enough to live in a nice place. So how could we give a chance for them to be in a big city with very little money? So this is the project called LightHouse. We look around in Bangkok. There are lots of abandoned buildings or unfinished buildings. These buildings are already equipped with electricity and water. So we thought this could be a perfect condition to be a temporary housing. So people would live here for a short time, and then when they get better in life, they can really move on to be in a normal place, in a normal condition. So this is one unit, and it could be many units together under this structure, and it could be really like a community. That was the idea. So we use this very simple, cheap metal grids that usually a street vendor would use to set up their stall every day. It's very, very light and cheap. And the size would be, the size is 2.4 meter by 4.8 meter to fit one parking space, 2 meter high. And this is how it looks at night. There are some curtains for more privacy. And then we also wrap the whole structure with mosquito net. So at night, as you can imagine, in a tropical climate, mosquito is the main enemy at night. So this is how it looks. We found an abandoned hotel that is very close to the subway, like 10-minute walk from the subway. They have this abandoned parking structure. They rent it out for people in the area. So we set up these 2 units and have people living there for a week. So to try if it works. And also we made a film out of, it's almost like a documentary how people living in these 2 units. And we submit that as our participation to Chicago Architecture Biennial, sorry. And the film finally was acquired as the permanent collection of Art Institute of Chicago. So if you go there now, you might be able to see the film. And this is during the day. Some more details. So the structure and the shells are the same thing. So it could be a furniture or it could be the structure. And also everything is put together by a cable tie. So you can see, imagine it's very cheap. Altogether it's around $1,200 per unit. With 2 people, it could be set up within 4 or 5 hours. If you collapse everything, you could put everything within one pickup truck easily. So that is the interior. And we did the second version at our office during Bangkok Design Week in 2018. During the day, it is an exhibition for public, but during the night we rent it out as Airbnb, and some people actually stay there. They can go to the toilet within our building. They sleep there. They slept there. It was quite fun. And this is the party during the opening and the interior of the space. And then later on in that summer, we did another third version in Japan, in Eshiko-Sumari Triennial. This time is a half side because the theme was how to make a small space, how to live in a small space. So this is the interior that we kind of improve and modify a little bit. With the lighthouse, people always ask us if we are kind of serious, if we think that it's really a house to live. I think we really thought that it could be a serious house, but we cannot be so sure. I think people will actually decide. They might get inspired. They might take some of the aspect and they might really abandon the rest. What we could do is just to show them this is a possibility and inspire them. So I will show you quickly the 2 more conventional projects that I think the way we work really with all these small experiments really inform the way we work also on a more conventional project. Because we are not afraid to try new things. We are always believe that we could handle the situation even though we work with a new thing. So this is the MAIIAM Contemporary Art Museum in Chiang Mai. We transform it from this is like very unassuming warehouse abandoned for 20 years So we transform it by inserting new walls and floor to make it a museum. That is kind of very light and very simple intervention. But then the key issue is this wall. We know that we have to do something with the wall because it's in the front, and it is a very prominent element when people see it from the highway. But we didn't really know what to do. We know that this has to be big and tall. The project altogether from day one that we started to work on until the opening was only 18 months. Only 18 months. So we had to design and build at the same time. So the wall was kind of the last element that we touched. By the time we had to work on the wall, we had like 6 months left. So we experiment, we try to understand what kind of material we could use, because it cannot be too noisy. It cannot be too loud, because Chiang Mai is considered a cultural capital of Thailand. You have to respect also the local, the traditions and so on. Otherwise, people think that, of course, you are from Bangkok, you can do whatever you want. So we didn't want to create that kind of feedback from the local people, so that we explore the material around in Chiang Mai. And it didn't really work so well. It didn't really catch our imagination. Finally, we found this wall. It's a temple wall in Chiang Mai. It's decorated with this mirror tile. It's very common in Thailand, but usually they use it in very colorful way. The mirror tile is very, very thin, like 1 millimeter thin. You can almost break it by hand. So people would cut it into a very small pieces, very delicate shape. But when we saw this wall, we thought like, wow, this looks quite contemporary and also traditional at the same time with this natural color. So we wanted to use it for our wall. But then we asked like local craftsmanship from all over Japan, all over Thailand, to install this mirror tile for us, but no one wanted to do it, because usually they would use this very difficult epoxy glue, and it would take forever. And we had like 450 square meter to clad, and nobody wanted to do. So finally, we had to find a way. We did a lot of workshop with the special craftsmen and also our contractor. Finally, we found a new way to install all this mirror tile with the glue that we use for swimming pool tile, and it looks much nicer and faster. And this is how it looks. Instead of like 3 months, we finished this in within like 5 to 6 weeks, the whole 450 square meters. And this is how you look at it close up. And it is how it reflects the environment with very nice tree around. And people really didn't understand that it is this mirror tile, the traditional material. The last project I will quickly share with you within these 3 minutes is the affordable housing we just completed recently. Maybe you're familiar with this map that New York Times published some time ago about all the cities in the world that would be underwater by 2050. Bangkok would be one of them, unfortunately. And usually the area around that it would get flooded a lot would be a place where low-income housing situated. The project we work on was, of course, one of them. It's really in the area that it will get flooded easily and more often. So the developer came to us, and we did a lot of workshop to understand how we approach the project. And then we proposed that the project should be free on the ground level, and so that if it is flooded, everything will be fine. And it should be very low energy consumption, to have a sunscreen, cross ventilations, and security within one layer of the facade. Of course, so we try to use the concrete blocks as we did with our office. And so this is how it would look during the dry season and the wet season. And this is how we work with the ventilations, and the sun and the water would be within this small unit. And we did a lot of experiment with the concrete block. We designed the whole set of concrete block. We work a lot with the manufacturers. We convinced the client, the developer, to set up their own factory so that they can produce all the concrete block themselves without waiting for the other manufacturers to do it for them. So we succeed in doing so. This is like the model, the test we did with the concrete blocks. And furthermore, I am very proud, and I like to share this with you, that the whole project is 333 units. So I told the client, the developers, that why don't we build like one-to-one prototype to understand, so that this is like all new, the way we would work, even though the construction method is conventional, but all the details we could reduce the cost a lot by trying to build one, to understand how we work faster, cheaper, and everything else. And they like the idea, and finally we did the prototype of one-to-one, and we modify a lot so that finally the project could become really affordable. The price is really tempting. So this is how it is. Now we have like only the first 32 units are done last December, and they keep building the rest. So this is again, we actually push and support the client to go into more experimental, more of the new elements that they never done before. I think we really learn a lot from our less conventional, and we try to apply that to the more conventional project. I like to end the talk with all these images. I think we all now are kind of worried and nervous about the conditions of the world. As an architect, what do? We have all this climate change condition, as I just mentioned. We have this natural disaster, and architecture is always part of that. We have mass migrations. Again, also architecture also have to do with that. We work on detention center as well. So we know that this is like a big area that architects could do a lot. Political issue, we still have everywhere. Thailand is one of them. We have pandemic, we have housing issue. And as an architect, it's so difficult to handle all this, especially we have no room to really do experiment, because usually when you start to do experiment, a common client, a usual client would start to call a lawyer. If you knew something too new, they would like, very suspicious. But how can we come up with something new? How can we solve all this problem, or not to solve, let's say respond to all this problem with architecture and our practice, if we have really no room to try something? If we look at, like, let's say the pandemic, we were able to get very quickly the vaccine because we spent a lot of energy and money into experiment. I don't know how we can do really better architecture without a room to fail, to experiment, and to fail and to learn. So I just want to share and ask everyone to think how we can do this. Before ending, I would like to emphasize that all this that I show you is not my work alone. It's a lot of people, energy, time, sleepless nights, and long hours of work of the people who work with me, and also at Ozone and elsewhere. So thanks to them that we have done all this. And finally, thank you very much for your time, and it's really a pleasure and honor to share all this with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachaporn. I just wanted to, I didn't say it before the lecture, but to encourage folks to enter questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So I guess I'll start off. I guess one question I have, Rachaporn, is maybe from how you ended the talk, is what I'm curious what inspires your experiments, because I do believe that, you know, as you said, that it's necessary to experiment and really look at our urban spaces in particular very differently in order to try to create new realities. And I'm very curious, what is it that inspires your experiments?
I think the way we live now is too rigid, is too compartmentalized. Of course, we are afraid of everything, isn't it? Like dangers, or I don't know, of all kinds. But at the same time, when we compartmentalize ourselves, when we build big walls, thick wall, it's really prevent us from talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really prevents us from handling our physical environment with our hands. This kind of frustrated me because as an architect, when you think of something, you wanted to do it right away, and it's never the case, right? When you after you drew it, it's like how does it look, and just in your imaginations. But I think I'm talking of two things at the same time, that like in socially, I want everything to be a bit more open so that people can really have more conversations, more dialogue between the way among people. The other aspect is, as an architect, I want to be able to do something with my hands right away. That's why all these experiments of fabric happen, because it's easy to handle, and it's like growing bigger and bigger. Apart from the MPavilion, the latest one, all the previous experiment, we made it in-house, because we cannot ask anyone to do this for us. No one wanted to do this for us. So we are an office, an architecture office that has a sewing machine. so that's why I want to do something light. That's, as an architect, And also, I think that lighter elements would allow people to have more contact, more interaction, and they could even modify their own environment.
No, I think it's interesting. Like as you say that, I'm thinking of the MPavilion and the museum, and you know, the living pods in the parking garage. All of them, the horizontal surfaces are very strong, but the vertical surfaces are very light. Or with the MPavilion, they're not even there. So like by almost dematerializing these walls, it seems like you are maybe like proposing a different way of being together.
Wow, I'm glad you said that. So I'm trying. I don't know if it's working yet.
Well, well, I'm gonna one question from the audience, and then I'm going to also expound on it, I think, which be so the audience member asks, I guess particularly with the MPavilion, like what inspired the shapes? Like, are there references to natural or organic forms? So maybe that's a specific question. Maybe a more general question related to that is like the interplay in your work between the material, like, and the form and the effect that it creates. Like which of these maybe is, you know, inspires the work? Is there one that inspires the work more than others and leads to how do you make it versus beginning with the material and then what does it do? Or yeah.
Okay, from the first question about the form, the MPavilion, I think the two questions are pretty much the same to me, because I never had a specific form in mind when I started to work. I had like vague form, vague, but a very clear quality of the space or effects that I wanted. And I try to share that quality with everyone I work with, from my team, also the engineers, trying to inspire people to see the same quality. The form is actually the last thing that I would touch, and I would try to allow everyone to propose their condition or their forms. Either the engineer asks, like coming up with something, and finally, little by little, with all these inputs, we would try to finalize the form. In case of the MPavilion, it is all together. We had a vague idea, as I showed in the beginning, like this kind of roof that has this loose element, but we had really no idea how to make it, like zero ideas. I have to say that zero ideas. And then we explained that to the engineers, and also they proposed the material here and there. It took really a long process. I think altogether for the MPavilion, it took us 6 months to finally arrive to the stage where we are like, okay, more or less it'll be like this. The form, the shape that is look like natural, organic. It just like we want something that looks very soft and looks like something that could go very well with the way fabric curve itself. In fact, the engineers from ACOM, they are very sensitive on this. They didn't really allow any member to be a straight line apart from the column. They said, no, you can't, like even this beam doesn't need to be curved. Let's do it curved, so everything would kind of speak the same language. So I took that as a kind of success, that they were inspired enough to really go along with the whole concept of the project.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you have such amazing, and that was one of the really beautiful things about the presentation too, is just all, whether it's the people in your office or, you know, ACOM engineers or fishing net people, just the collaborative nature of your work and how much you forefront that. And so, I mean, this is a lead into one of the questions with who the audience member was wondering if you have experienced any differences in working with local crafts construction people, for instance, in Thailand versus other places like Australia, what we consider the more, quote, developed world. And are there, for example, a difference in the willingness to experiment in these different locations?
I think if you convince them enough, they do. Like, we work really a lot with local manufacturers in Thailand. I love to go to factories, like all kind of factories. I'm fascinated by the way everything is made. I am always excited, and then they would be like, why, what are you so excited about? And I think that energy transfer to them, and they would be willing to do something with you because you share it the way they work or the object they make. So in terms of collaborations, in Australia, I think they have more strict rules, right? It's as you can imagine with a more developed country, and the manufacturers have like very limited working hours, while like in Thailand you could like, oh please, can you stay a bit longer and complete this within today, and it's like, okay, they can do it. But in a place like Australia, they are more strict, and you wouldn't be able to do such a thing. But in general, I think they're not much different in terms of willingness to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, but also just like the collaborative qualities also very maybe aligns with the elimination of these walls, right? How, you know, just symbolically an architecture with dematerialized walls is also relates to the discipline or the practice of architecture, and really taking down those walls and sort of working with all these different people. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so there's another, I mean, well, it's still early in the day here, so, but another question maybe related to that is someone is like, what advice do you have, say, for, because I remember, well, still like also an young architect, and still doing these kind of maybe not, whether pavilions or installations, work that's outside of traditional architecture, and how, first of all, stressful. I find it particularly stressful. It seems like you get energy from it, but but like how also the question is like, if you have advice for architects to encourage experimentation, whether in their office or say with a client, you know, as part of a design process. Yeah, through your experiences, how have you had to kind of encourage people, for instance, that you're working with to go a little bit farther?
Well, I would say that I would encourage everyone, if they have a chance to do it. I never think that any commission is uninteresting. I mean, the commission itself is not. There's no uninteresting commission. More like uninteresting client. Right? The commission is always, you will find a way to make the commission interesting. the more important is the client, if they understand. But okay, if the commission is allow you to do experiments process, take it, embrace it, and work on it as if you get millions out of it. Actually, it will pay back. I promise you that it will pay back. Like I talked to some young people and they said like, but we get very little money out of this. We didn't want to put too much energy, but actually it will pay back because you learn so much from doing so. Some of the stuff I show you today, actually behind the scene, we did like 20 options, maybe like more 30 more models, but I didn't really show, but all those hours and options that you make will pay back. Really, believe me, it's and I would like to go back to what Sunil say about working without walls, like the collaborations. In this kind of experiment, it's allow you to meet new people who are really out of a conventional architectural practice, and you will learn a lot from them. If you think that you don't know anything, I always go in a place as someone who knows nothing, and then asking a lot of questions. And I think that in that process, really, I learned a lot, and it helps to work on, like, as I said in the lecture, like more conventional project, really a great deal, because you're not afraid. So thinking out of convention, right? And you know how to handle that kind of unconventional elements. If you give a clear framework of how far you would go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm really amazed by the way that you can do this work in very far away places as well. On one hand, it's so hands-on, and then to be like, have it be happening on the other side of the world is really a challenge. And so I'm wondering how your like method of working is different. Say, you know, if you're doing a project in a parking garage in Bangkok versus, you know, doing something in Sharjah on the other side of the world.
Well, in parking garage in Bangkok, of course, everything was controlled by our hands, right? We made everything ourselves. In Sharjah, actually, we also made everything ourselves here in Bangkok, and we ship there. We carry everything there. But then I would say that, like, working in a case of Sharjah, we have to prepare everything from here. We brought every single element, like every screwdrivers we need, because we didn't know the condition there. But then fortunately they had a great team, so we didn't really do anything. If we work in a place like Australia or other places that we really rely on a local builder, I think it's a bit different. We really have to try to understand the way they work, the way they build, the way they do everything. And if I could, I would try to go there to meet the person eyes to eyes. I think that is really crucial. Otherwise, it's impossible to fluently communicate. I mean, okay, you can do Zoom meetings, you can try to send drawing and so on, but nothing still beats the direct conversation. So you have to understand how they work. You have to understand how what is their, let's say, what is their fear?
Mhm.
What is their fear? What are like what would be a kind of uneasy situation that they try to avoid? So I think we're talking a little bit beyond architecture, but for me, if you want to create something, you really need to understand the people.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful thinking about also, I guess, being one or being across the table from someone, you're able to see their fear without them actually saying anything from
Yeah.
so on.
And we try to accommodate, right? Like
Yeah.
if you know that people who work with you have fear on this, okay, let's fix.
Yes. There's a question actually from Cambodia.
Wow.
And yes, wondering if the cost of materials and construction of the MPavilion was one of the determining factors in what you made.
Actually, it has a kind of certain limits, but I think at the end, MPavilion is so generous. It's so generous. It's not really an issue that they try to tone down the design at all. So, but we also help them to come up with more economical options always. I mean, I never got any like a big project that has unlimited budget. So usually we would go with like less money options. So the MPavilion has a limit, but I don't know if we went over the limit. It's never a discussion. But for example, we got all the sponsorship with fabric, the STFE and the waffle materials are sponsored by the company Search Ferrari because they're like a project.
And I'm sure there are a lot more Thai fishing nets now in Australia.
I hope. I hope.
So actually, maybe I'll just ask the last question, which is about drawing and the ways that, you know, you showed a number of like different types of drawings to communicate these really different types of structures. And I was wondering how how drawing works in your office, or how if you've invented new ways of drawing to kind of communicate what you're trying to relay to fabricators or fishing net suppliers or whoever.
Actually, this you touched the question that I am a little bit annoyed myself the most, because let's say we are not able yet to develop a very a kind of drawing that would become our signature. Like we have no style. That is like I am always very annoyed with this, because well, as an architect we were trained and we're like, if you have like a kind of drawing that is your style, people remember, you know, like Aldo Rossi, right? Like Tadao Ando has a great drawing. We never had that. We just go with the flow. Like we just try to make it like the most communicative drawing to that particular condition, context, or persons. And I'm still like trying to think how we develop like a kind of signature drawing or way of presenting our project, but I'm not able yet.
I mean, it is interesting because, you know, you're doing these like, it's really about getting the thing made, and it's almost like drawings as instructions. And
yes,
what are the clearest types of instructions that you can draw and communicate? But at the same time, there's some very beautiful drawings in your presentation that are very unique, and then also relay the unique quality of the work that you're doing. So maybe you just need to take some time off and go through your library. And that That signature drawing is already there.
I don't know really. It's just like so many types of drawing that we did, but then we never really pay attention, and I'm a little bit frustrated on that.
Well, thank you, Rachaporn. And so this was a really wonderful presentation. It was great to spend the afternoon with you. So I'm going to, on behalf of the League, we're going to sign off, but I really want to thank everybody for showing up this middle of the day for a kind of lunchtime lecture here in New York, and probably a lecture over other meals in other parts of the world. So thank you all, and please come to any and all of the next League events that Mario reeled off before we began the talk. Thanks, Rachaporn.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure.